r/ask Reddit. What is a true fact that sounds fake? Snails have 14,000 teeth and eat bones and meat, not just vegetables. Some species can have up to 20,000 teeth. Oh, a snail's teeth are on its tongue. I love snail facts. When they bite they feel like a little cat tongue and it's adorable. My pet snails try and bite me all the time when I hold them. I know they are trying to eat me, but it's cute. The ancient Egyptian empire lasted more than 3,000 years. It has been less time since the empire fell. The empire lasted so long. There were ancient Egyptian archaeologists studying, even more, ancient Egypt. Not the same, but when the first emperor of Rome, Octavian, became Augustus, both his title and ruler name, he went to Alexandria to visit the tomb of Alexander the Great in 27 BC. For him, ancient, or at least old historic, conqueror of all of the known world at that time in 330-320 BC, and the Romans imported lots of Egyptian archaeological stuff to Rome like obelisks. Just go straight to the middle of the St. Peter's Square today and have a rest 6 foot from one. Added when Augustus visited Alexandria and conceived the word ancient might be wrong when the distance is just 300 years, which is a lot of time, but not a lot of time as ancient usually signifies. The lighter was invented before matches. The fax machine was invented before the telephone. Holy shit, I thought you were flat out lying. Fax machine was invented in 1843. Human children don't get kneecaps until 3 years old. And sometimes that don't develop quite the way they should, and now my knees are ducky for the rest of my life. Not to brag, but I got them at 2 years 323 days. The day Michael Jackson's hair caught fire while filming a Pepsi commercial was the exact middle of his life. Born, the 29th of August, 1958. 281 days. Pepsi incident, the 27th of January, 1984. 281 days. Died, the 25th of June, 2009. That sure was a midlife crisis. This reminds me of how Tolkien died in 1973, which is the order the rings were introduced in reverse. 3 for the elves, 7 for the dwarfs, 9 for man, and 1 ring to rule them all. Butterflies are fond of cow shit, fresh blood, and corpses. Also, they love pineapple. Who doesn't? People were on the moon before they put wheels on suitcases. Priorities. Look, I can just screw them on myself. You won't have to do anything. You guys can keep working on your rocket. No wheels on suitcases until we get people on the moon. We gotta keep our priorities straight. Oxford University predates the Aztec Empire by 5 centuries. I've tried to explain just how old Oxford is to so many people, mainly my dad who doesn't believe me, but this statement might help. There is evidence of teaching as early as 1096, making it the oldest university in the English-speaking world and the world's second oldest university in continuous operation. Aztec Empire. Founded, 1428. Sounds like your dad needs to learn how to Google. Dinosaurs were around for so long that there were already dinosaur fossils while they were still alive. Basically, as T-Rex was munching away on Triceratops steaks, Stegosaurus had already been dead and underground for millions of years by that point. The gap between Stegosaurus and Tyrannosaurus was around 66 million years, which is about the same as the gap between Tyrannosaurus and us, and modern dinosaurs equals birds. Stegosauruses predate flowers. That's hard to think about. Flowers is a recent innovation. From 1912 to 1948, the Olympics awarded official medals for painting, sculpture, architecture, literature and music, alongside those for the athletic competitions. And Salvador Dali wins yet again, another gold medal for the Spaniards. Damn, I kinda wanna watch some Olympic painting NGL. Cleopatra is closer in time to the first Pizza Hut than the building of the pyramids of Giza. Giza Hut. Hey, that's my factoid. Same goes for T-Rex versus Stegosaurus versus current times. Edit. For those wondering, Stegosaurus lived approx 145 million years ago. N.M. Wikipedia. Orgwiki Stegosaurus, whereas Trex lived 66 million years ago. N.M. Wikipedia. Orgwiki Tyrannosaurus, that's a delta of at least 77 million years ago on the low end and 89 million years on the high end. Dinosaurs only went extinct 65 million years ago. Koalas are so dumb that they can't recognize a eucalyptus leaf if it isn't attached to a tree. They seem like a species that evolved to not survive. Their stupidity is also a strength, because they are literally too stupid to suffer, so will willingly just sit in a tree, eat one specific type of leaf, and scream for a mate to show up to make more of the stupid things. Monsoonal rains, don't care, struck by lightning, burnt eucalyptus leaves, singed fur, and a large serving of not caring fall out of tree, bounce on the ground and keep trucking along. If we weren't killing off their natural habitat by logging, they'd probably outlive us all, out of sheer chronic indifference to any stimulus. Alligators will give manatees the right of way if they are swimming near each other. Did you know that touching a manatee is illegal? It's punishable under the Manatee Sanctuary Act, with a fine of up to $500 and or a jail term of up to 60 days. Are you a manatee toucher? Shame on you. There was a really old church somewhere in northern Europe where it was discovered that a Viking had written a message on a support beam several meters from the ground. There was then a tedious effort dedicated to climbing up while keeping the church's integrity, and when they got to it, the message translated to "This is very high." It was an ancient Viking prank. Additionally, the internet is held together with tape, glue, hope, and furries. Edit. I found an article about it, and in an effort to prevent misinformation I'll post it here for people to read. It was a mound, not a church. Their leader was on his way to a parish when a bad storm hit, so they camped inside the mound until the storm passed, spending their time making graffiti. This might be a long shot, but I remember reading somewhere that you can find Norse runes graffitied on a Greek temple, and they basically translate to "name was here." It's the Hagia Sophia. Halfdan was here. The mantis shrimp punches so hard it generates light. Had to Google, because they strike so rapidly, they generate vapor-filled bubbles in the water known as cavitation bubbles. The collapse of these bubbles produces measurable forces on their prey in forces of 1,500 newtons that are caused by the impact against the striking surface. The prey is hit twice by a single strike. First by the claw and then by the collapsing bubbles that immediately follow. Even if the initial strike misses the prey, the resulting shockwave can be enough to stun or kill. Roe mantis shrimp uses quick attack. It's super effective. One punch shrimp. King Carl XVI Gustaf and Queen Sylvia of Sweden were turned away from a German restaurant in 2011 since there were no free tables and they didn't have a reservation. TBH, I think they enjoyed the anonymity and were not recognized. In 1912 the Danish king was visiting Hamburg and was out walking in civilian clothes and had a heart attack. Due to people not knowing who he was first ignored, then taken to a hospital for anyone, and then died there. A hospital for anyone, LMAO. Sharks existed before grass and trees. Trees used to not have an enzyme to decay their bark, so they just laid on the ground for millions of years, which is also why we have coal. Actually, it's that fungi hadn't evolved to break down trees. Then when they evolved to break down cellulose, they boomed in population and coal, diamonds, fossil fuels pretty much stopped being produced naturally. We are closer to the last ever dinosaur than the last dinosaur was to the first ever dinosaur. Depends where you place them in the museum. Really. Cleopatra only had 2 great-grandparents. Sweet home ancient Egypt. Singing that in my head was fun. The Greenland shark has a life expectancy of between 250-500 years. That means there could be a Greenland shark swimming around that swam the oceans when the Spanish conquistadors went to search Mexico for gold, which at that time were inhabited by the Aztecs. Nipples on men exist just because the Y chromosome kicks in later. For anyone who doesn't understand what this means, when humans are growing in the womb, they all start off as female, and then if you have a Y chromosome it kicks in later in the development and you become male. This is also why the clitoris kinda resembles a penis, or, technically, the other way round. Is that why mine is so small? Apparently, elephants really do have great memories. Earlier this year, an elephant killed a woman. A few days later it escaped its enclosure and traveled 130 miles to rip her out of her casket at her funerals and sling her body around. IDK what she did to that elephant. But it did not forget. I heard a story one time about a man that came across a baby elephant while on safari in Africa, and the elephant was all tangled up in a poacher's snare trap. The man carefully approached the scared elephant and was able to saw through the wire using his Swiss Army knife. The little elephant scampered away, but turned to face the man as he rejoined his herd and raised his trunk as if to say thank you. 12 years later, the same man went to a circus in a nearby town. He watched the acrobats, tightrope walkers, and equestrians work their magic. Then the elephants came out. He couldn't help to think of the safari and the little elephant he saved. As a matter of fact, the second biggest elephant kind of reminded him of that little one. Halfway through the act, the elephant caught the man staring and smiling. After that, the elephant would turn and look at the man as the routine allowed. When the routine was over, the elephant broke free of its trainers and ran up into the stands where it trampled the man to death. Turns out it was a different elephant. Dang it, you had me going there. Female dragonflies drop out the sky and pretend to be dead to avoid unwanted male advances. Saw a documentary that showed how male dragonflies will catch the females in flight and whirl them around to expel the sperm of the male who previously mated with her, before they themselves mate. Australia has the largest amount of wild camels in the world. There are more pet tigers in Texas than there are in the wild of the entire planet. That's really depressing. Nintendo was founded in 1889. They started as a game company as well. They were a gaming cards company. There are more trees on Earth than stars in the galaxy. I didn't believe it myself at first. True, there are around 100 billion stars in the Milky Way but around 3 trillion, 30 more, trees on Earth. Wow, this is one of the few in this thread that actually blew my mind. If Earth suddenly stopped spinning, almost everyone would die within 3 seconds. How will this affect airplanes or basically anything flying? The air will crush the plane to little pieces midair and it will fall like raindrops later on. In 1895 there were 2 cars out of the entire state of Ohio and they still managed to crash into each other. McDonald's feeds 1% of the world's population daily. Bananas are berries and strawberries aren't. Neither are raspberries or blackberries. However, watermelons, cucumbers, and squashes are all berries. I hate all of this information. When the Great Pyramids were being built, woolly mammoths were still alive. Technically true. Which is the best kind? If I recall correctly, that's true due to one species of pygmy woolly mammoth on a secluded island that still lived at the time. It's not the full-size mammoth roaming Asia that people would probably be thinking of. Humans can smell geosmin, the chemical released when it rains or snows, at 5 parts per trillion, which means that humans are 200,000 times more sensitive to smelling geosmin than sharks are at smelling blood. No wonder people can smell rain. It sounds dumb but makes sense survival-wise. Abraham Lincoln died before the samurai were abolished as a caste, and could have sent one a fax. This one is paying attention. Sharks are older than the rings of Saturn. For some reason, this one hit the hardest for me, like we're talking about an astronomical unit of time and comparing it to the timeline of organisms on the planet. It just doesn't compute. In a group of 40 people, there is a 91% chance that 2 people share a birthday. ETA. Here is a link to a Vsauce 2 video explaining this. https youtube.com watch V equals a TB57 as has and feature equals Yauto. B. Credits to you/nern. A fully loaded Amazon Kindle is a billionth of a gram heavier than an empty one. Attila the Hun died from a nosebleed on his wedding night. That anime trope makes sense now. You don't poop or pee burnt fat, you exhale it. Yes, you lose weight by breathing. Start breathing faster. Bears eat beets. Bears. Beets. Battlestar Galactica. Which bear is best? A human anus can stretch up to 7 inches. A raccoon can enter a hole as small as 4 inches. Happy dreams edit. To the lowlifes who's doing actually wannabe correction comments. You might want to do some anatomy lessons, as the anus is not limited to the very specific sphincter ring muscle you're basing your statements on. Jesus. Okay, so then 2 raccoons if I get creative enough. No man. A 7-inch hole has an area of pi 7/2 pi 12, 25, and a raccoon would need pi 4/2 pi 4. So, if you pack them tightly you can get 3 raccoons there, believe me, I know. In the Pompeii eruption, the extreme heat caused some victims' brain tissue to turn to glass. There's a penguin named Brigadier Sir Nils Olav III who is the ceremonial head of the Norwegian Royal Guard, and he lives in Scotland. Both Stalin and Hitler were briefly in the same city as each other, Vienna, before they met, or knew about each other, at least. And Trotsky and Tito. And Freud, all at the same time, in 1913. Snakes have necks and tails. Cheetahs don't roar, they meow. The chainsaw was invented to aid in childbirth. It was used and invented in the 1700s to cut through the woman's pelvic bone before C-sections became the commonplace way to deliver babies. Redheads need 20% more anesthesia than non-redheads. That's just so we don't wake up while everyone is marveling at our beauty. There are more slaves today than in any points in history. A president of the United States of America who lost an election fomented a violent insurrection of the US Capitol that resulted in multiple, but fortunately not dozens, or hundreds, deaths, and when he was impeached for it, his own party, despite fearing for their lives on the day, refused to charge him with the treason that insurrection is. All the planets in the solar system can fit between the Earth and the Moon. Angelina Jolie was very suicidal early in her life and hired a hitman to end her. The hitman, however, decided to try and get her better instead. Sound like the way to earn a repeat customer. 3 of my grandparents have the same birthday and 2 of them on the same year. America has never lost a war when they used a donkey in their army. I once read that if you keep a goldfish in a dark room, it will eventually turn white. -40C is equal to -40F. The universe's resources are finite and eventually the processes making new stars will be unable to continue. The universe will become a dark void intermittently filled with stellar bodies. We live in a glorious time where we can see beautiful pictures of the stars and enjoy them from our backyards. Count yourself lucky. There are no races. Sapiens are the last of the human races. Ethnicity is not the same as race. https://www.youtube.com watch v equals vnfkgffcz7u. Added the video to quell the most common rebuttals. True fact is tautological. A spider called the banana spider can bite you and cause a painful erection that lasts hours. Betty White, 1922, is older than packaged sliced bread, 1928 in the USA and 1937 in the UK. Sliced bread is the greatest thing since Betty White. Donald Trump was actually the US president at one time. I am the Times Person of the year 2006. Solid matter is made up of mostly empty space. The Michelin star system was developed by Michelin tires. Apple seeds contain a substance that releases cyanide into your bloodstream. More people drown in the desert than die of dehydration. Tiffany is a name from the Middle Ages. Cats can drink seawater. I am my parents' favorite child. If you could fold a piece of paper more than 6 times, you could reach the moon in 41 folds, and in 81 folds, it'd be 120,000 light years away, and at 103 folds, it would be longer than the entire universe. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson died on the same day, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence being signed. Both of their last words were along the lines of "My friend Adams Jefferson still lives." They shared almost the same last words but had no idea one of them were already dead. Edit. I have been corrected. It was the Declaration of Independence, not the Constitution. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.